Hi everyone, it's Corrine Carpino here today, and many of you have asked me how to resin artwork, and this is not something I can teach in a local class because of the process, but I thought I would share it with you for those of you who are interested. So I'm starting with this painting, and I've painted this on white modeling film. And I have attached it to a cradled panel with a matte gel medium. And then to finish this off, I've sprayed this with Camar varnish in order to set those inks. It's a non-yellowing protection, and it keeps this nice look of the ink without moving it around. I put 2 coats of that on. I let it dry for 24 hours, and then I've put about 6 coats of this UV archival varnish on. Now, both of these products should be used outside, and you have to watch your humidity levels here in Florida. But this will give it a non-yellowing protection to your artwork and give it some UV protection as well. So the next thing I've done is I have used some painter's tape and covered up the sides of my artwork because I don't want the resin to get there. So now that this has all been prepared, we're going to mix up our resin, and I'll show you the next steps. When mixing art resin, please be sure that you have some protection in terms of respiratory protection. I'm using Art Resin brand, which is low VOC, it's low odor, and in order to figure out how much I needed for that 8x10 piece, I'll put a screenshot up later, but I did go to the Art Resin website and use their resin calculator. So here's the resin calculator on the Art Resin site. So I have 2 mixing cups here, or measuring cups, a mixing cup, and I am going to use a tongue depressor to mix it with. So this is a 2-part epoxy resin. I need 3 ounces in total. So each of these little measuring cups is about 3 ounces. Excuse me. I'm going to pour the hardener and resin into separate cups. Okay. Let me very carefully, notice I have gloves on. I'm just going to pour until I get that cup filled. I'll put that down. Fill it right to the rim. I want to make sure I fill these both all the way up. Okay, and we'll cap that up. Now the Art Resin brand resin comes with color-coded caps, which is really helpful. So, okay, so now we're going to pour both of these into our mixing cup. Just putting my glove back on so I don't get any of this resin on my hands. If you do get resin on your hands, it will come off with alcohol. So let's just grab this cup, we'll pour it in here, and use our tongue depressor just to help it, so that we really want to get as much out of here as possible so that we have equal amounts of resin and hardener. Remember to use this in a well-ventilated area. I have a fan on, I have with the windows open. If I can't open the windows with the Florida humidity, I keep a VOC filter running. Okay, and we'll pour the other one in here. All right, it looks like we've gotten it all. Double check this one. All right, we are done with those cups. And now we are going to stir this resin for 3 minutes. So I'm going to put the timer on and I'll be back. But as you're stirring, I want to mention, make sure you wipe the sides of the container so that the hardener and the resin are thoroughly mixed, and make sure you move your tongue depressor or your stirrer along the bottom of your container as well. Okay, so I'm going to go put my timer on for 3 minutes and I'll be back. While the resin sits, I do have to prepare my work surface for my painting. And so I have to make sure the work surface is level. So I have my painting. I'm using some solo cups to add some height because I want any resin to drip off. I have a plastic garbage bag over the top of my work surface, and my work surface isn't entirely level. So I've had to shimmy these cups a little bit to make it level. So let's just double check that this is level before we start. And so I'm going to put my level in the middle of that painting, and looking down, and I can see that my bubble is in between the lines. It's probably hard for you to see, but it is level going in both directions, and that's really important so that my resin doesn't run off of this. Okay, so the next step is going to be to pour my resin on the top of my painting. Okay, so you should be able to see the whole painting at this point. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use my resin. I also have here a small spreader, and I have a larger spreader. The other thing I have is a torch. This is just a butane torch, and we're going to use this to get the bubbles out of our resin when we're done. So we'll move some things out of the way. And I'm going to start by, you can see how those bubbles reach the top and they'll break. Let's start by just pouring about half of this resin right in the center of my painting. I'm going to let it spread. It is self-leveling. It will spread on its own. And I'm going to let that spread a bit. I've already made sure my painting is lint-free. And you can see there's still bubbles in there, and it is still spreading on its own. And then when it stops, I'll take my butane torch. I do have a fire extinguisher nearby just in case. I'm going to turn that on and get that butane going. And I'm just going to start by moving this around and getting some of those bubbles out and heating this resin up. I want to be careful I don't touch my painting. I want to touch that painting and burn it. I'm going to keep this moving. Keep it moving. Okay. And that looks pretty clear. So we'll turn that off. And now I'm going to pour some resin around that, around the outsides. I want to start to work it out. And I'm just going to have just enough resin to finish this. I'm going to keep some because I might need it. And I might start by moving it with my tongue depressor. And I'm just going to bring it out towards those edges. And I am pretty slow and meticulous with my resin because I actually don't want it to run down the sides. And I just want a 1/8 inch coat when I'm done. And continue to pull it towards the sides. I'm just going to continue to work it out. And get it right up against the sides of that painting. Without going over the edge. Just keep working it. Right up to the sides. Now I'm pretty meticulous when I work with my resin because I really don't want to have to do a second coat. Some people like to do 2 coats, I prefer 1. And I'll just continue to work that out. And I'll take my little tool and go back later and make sure it's truly pulled all the way to the edges. Now before I do that, I'll heat this up again because as it warms, it is going to move. All right, so let's heat that up one more time. I'm going to keep it moving, getting my bubbles out, not getting it too close, don't want to burn the resin. It's going to heat up and it's going to start to move a little bit more. And you can, maybe hard to see, but the bubbles are starting to come out. Okay, so I'm going to now take my little tool here and I'm going to just get right along these edges. Hopefully my head's not in the way of you seeing. Get right to these edges with that resin. And I'll be able to see where I need a little more resin. So I can see in here I need a little more. That right around the edges. Put a little bit more around the near the edge, all the way around. Nothing worse than getting done and realizing you've got a hole or a place where it didn't go all the way where you needed it to be. Let's just get the rest of this on here. Got a hole in there I can see. Okay, I can see I've got a hole up here now that my light is shining. I'm going to bend down and make sure I don't have any more holes. Continue to work this around the outside. And I can start to see now where I need some extra. Okay. Now I'm going to pull this all the way to that edge. All the way to that edge. All the way around. Make sure there's no holes. It has the consistency of honey. Especially get up in here. And Hopefully my head's not in the way. Trying to keep it out of the way. Okay. And we'll pull it down around this side. Again, making sure that it's covering everything. Work my way around one more time, because I just want to be sure that it's not pulling back. Sometimes it has a tendency to pull back from the edges, and I want to make sure it's not pulling back. Now if it goes over a little bit, I have my tape. I'm not worried about it. Okay. So, leaning down and around, kind of looking at this. Look, my coverage looks pretty good. So I'm going to heat this again. You can start to see now it's got that nice shiny look. So let's heat this one more time and start to get the rest of these bubbles out. Again, just keep that moving. And bubbles will continue to come to the surface. Okay. So now we're just going to double check around the edges again. Make sure that we're all the way to the edge. Got a little spot there I don't like. Make sure that we're all the way to the edge. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is check for any lint or spots of dirt or anything like that that happens to be in our painting. So there's one there. I'm just going to lift it out with that toothpick. If you get your light just right on your resin, you can see those little tiny spots of lint. So I'm going to give it some time for the rest of the bubbles to work out. And I'm going to come back and spray it again. But in the meantime, I want to make sure that I don't get any lint in this while it's starting to set up. And so I'm going to take a container and I'm going to cover it with this container, and I'm going to come back in 5 minutes and take a look at it. Okay, my 5 minutes is up and I'm back. So let's just remove this for a moment carefully. One more time, still have some bubbles coming up. Okay, actually I think I'm going to let this sit and come back and look at it in about 15 minutes. I'll still have a little bit of time if I need to do anything else to it. And there we go. So I will come back and just double check that. And then tomorrow I'll be able to, about this time tomorrow, about 24 hours from now, I'll be able to take that cover off and take the tape off. And then the resin does take 72 hours to cure. So I hope you found this helpful. I'll make sure I show you the finished product. Okay, it has been 24 hours now since we covered the resin up. So let's see what we have. I'm going to remove my container here and put that aside. And let's just see what we have. We don't have any drips, which is really good. Surface looks nice. Nice and even. No major blemishes, so I'm happy about that. And so let's take our tape off. And let's start with the top here. We'll move our cups out of the way so we have a place to work. Okay, we're going to take this tape off. Should come right off, leave a nice clean edge here. You can see that I've already painted the sides of this cradle. And we'll continue to pull this tape off. So this always leaves a nice edge. Some people like their resin coming down over the side of the painting, but I prefer it not. Either way is fine, it's personal preference. Okay. And so now you can see we have a nice smooth edge. We have a nice glossy finish. And all I need to do is put a hanger on the back of this, sign it, and it'll be ready for sale. Thanks so much for watching, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment on the blog at CorrineCarpinoArt.com. Visit me on Facebook and Instagram, as well as my Pinterest page. And as always, I'm available in the Alcohol Inc. Society and the Alcohol Inc. community. Have a great day.